Before we get started, I want to tell you a story about my kids. They're not my kids, but they're family kids, and they spent the summer with me and my family a few years ago. And I showed them all the movies that I have, all the movies that I grew up watching. Um, and towards the end of their stay, we are kind of running out of movies to watch. And I was like, oh, what should we watch? Let's watch, I don't know. Oh, let's watch Bambi. I hadn't seen Bambi since I was I don't know 6, 7 years old, but I used to watch it all the time on VHS. Um, but we had it on DVD or Blu-ray, I forget. But we had it, and so I put it on. It was a big couch. I sat in the middle of the couch, and I had one kid on one side and the other kid on the other side. Because if the kids are next to each other, they're fighting and talking the whole time. So I sat in the middle, and as soon as the opening titles started, just the music and the logo, I started crying. I started crying like a baby. And for the next 70 minutes, it's mercifully only around 70, 75 minutes long, I just, every message and memory from that movie just hit me all at once. And I was just crying the whole time, sitting in between these two little kids who were like 7 and 10. And I was just struggling and failing to hold it in. And it was a mess. It was a disaster. It was also one of the best movie watching experiences of my life, but it was hard. It was rough. And that brings us to Ferdinand. Now, on one hand, you've got Bambi, which is about growing up and throwing away childhood naivete and taking your place in the natural order of things. And that's a timely, kind of universal message, but it's also a little sad. Like, Bambi just wanted to frolic and have a good time, and then he has to grow out of it. Uh, and on the other hand, you have Ferdinand, who is about growing up. The movie's about growing up, but not growing out of the things that you love as a child. Now, I'd never heard of Ferdinand the Bull. I mean, after I watched it, I was like, oh, this is like a super famous story from the 30s. It was a book, a children's book with gorgeous illustrations, but I didn't know anything about it going in. And I didn't really see any of the ads. I wasn't. I kind of hate to say it, but I wasn't terribly interested in the movie. Like, I didn't care when I was going in. It was like, oh, there's a screening and you're invited. It's at 11 in the morning, and all right, fine, whatever. 11 in the morning. That's yeah. I went from the jump, from the very beginning. I was in. The first scene of the movie is Ferdinand as a little boy, or as a little calf. It's him and his dad's going off to fight in the bullfight, and of course he doesn't come back. And Ferdinand gets so sad that he escapes and he runs away, and he finds a family who takes care of him. And the core theme of the movie is that just because he's a bull doesn't mean that he has to fight. And he says at one point, just because I don't want to fight doesn't mean I'm scared. And that's such a huge thing, because they're constantly berating him with, if it's dog eat dog or bull eat bull, you kill or you fight. I don't think they say kill, but you fight or you're meat. And that's hammered home by the fact that not the farm, but the place where all these bulls live is right next to Chop Shop. I mean, chop shops are for cars, but like chop shop, meat, butcher place. And they're like, if you're not putting in all the effort you can to get stronger and more vicious so that you can be in the bullfights, then you're useless. So you have to go and die. And speaking of the bullfights, the movie doesn't go out of its way to cast shame on anything. Like, it does have, the lead characters are bulls, and it's about them being turned into steaks and burgers. But it's not saying, you got to be vegetarian or anything like that. But it does, and I think this is really cool, take a pretty solid stance against bullfighting. I think I can see them leaving themselves enough of an out to go, oh no, we're not saying it's terrible, but nah, screw bullfighting. Like, it's a barbaric sport where a crowd of people watch some guy kill an animal. Like, oh, that's cool. Give me a break, right? And in the movie itself, it says this is pretty gross. This is not a fair fight. It's these guys armed with swords and knives and a bull who doesn't know what's going on, who gets tricked into getting killed. And there's a scene where they show the horns of Ferdinand's dad, and it's just it's mounted on a wall along with dozens of others, and it's just, oh, this is rigged. It's like hunting for sport, and only one side is ever going to win. I mean, I'm sure bullfighters get gored all the time. I actually have no idea. I have no idea what the mortality rate of a bullfighter is. But the movie makes it clear that bullfighting, not cool. Let me just say that Ferdinand had me hooked from that first scene where the little kids are learning how to fight. It's like watching kids play cops and robbers or cowboys and Indians. And there's all, kids who just want to do stuff that isn't representative of killing. All the little bulls are doing that. They're fighting, they're play fighting, but they're still fighting. And Ferdinand is tending to a flower, like this one random flower that that grew, and he's taking care of it and feeding it water, and it's great. And he sticks to that. His character arc is all about not straying from that core tenet of protecting life. And it's played for hilarious comedy at one point, 2 points actually, where there's this little, not a baby bunny, but an adorable little tiny bunny, and he tries to save it from getting trampled, and he does, but the bunny gets so scared by him that he has a heart attack and dies. And then there's like that great little image of Ferdinand giving him little bunny CPR, and like the eyes are bulging out of his head, and it's like a random spot of black comedy in this adorable family film, and it's hilarious, especially since he actually saves the bunny, and the bunny comes back to life, and that's really nice. But I loved it. And I wasn't sure if I was going to. Like, I told you I was hooked in the first scene, but with that being hooked came a little bit of apprehension towards the voice cast. Now, they weren't the regular cast yet. They're little kids, so they're played by child actors. But I was a little bit, not totally turned off, but like, oh, how are they going to do this? The movie is set in Spain, because of the bullfights. But none of the main voice actors are Hispanic. When they're kids, they all have American accents, but when they grow up to be John Cena and Anthony Anderson and Bobby Cannavale and Peyton Manning, of all people, which was weird. I didn't know he was an actor. And none of them are Spanish or remotely Hispanic, as far as I know. And Ferdinand's father is played in one scene by Jeremy Sisto, and I don't think he's Spanish either. And I thought it was going to bother me, and it bothered me like a little tiny bit, but I got over it pretty quick. And all of the actual human characters are played by Hispanic people. Like Juanes, the pop singer, plays one of the main human characters, which is pretty cool. And there are people like Enrique, uh, Gabriel Iglesias, and Gina Rodriguez, who play hedgehogs, and they're pretty good. Although what's funny is that they're Hispanic, but they don't have thick or noticeable accents. So it's kind of, if you didn't know who they were, you might not even recognize that they're Latino. So I wasn't as distracted as I thought I would, as I thought I was going to be. And also, I didn't recognize almost any of the cast except for John Cena and Kate McKinnon. Like I said, this movie was not on my radar going in. So I just kind of went, and I knew that John Cena and Kate McKinnon were on it because theirs are the names above the poster. But everyone else, like David Tennant, who puts on like a really awesome Scottish accent, or I mean, is he Scottish? I don't know. I have no idea. But he plays a Scottish bull with bangs, and so that's pretty fun. Bobby Cannavale, I didn't recognize him, and Anthony Anderson, who has a distinct voice, I didn't recognize him either. I was just so enveloped so quickly that I was not even thinking about the cast. I'm also not one of those people who gets distracted by that sort of thing. Like if I recognize a voice, I'm not like, oh my god, I need to know who's playing this person now. It's going to bother me all night. And it's not going to bother me all night. I'll be fine. I can wait till the credits. And then when the credits did come around, I was like, oh, cool. I didn't know all those people were in it. Huh, how about that? Now, this movie's from Blue Sky Entertainment, or Blue Sky Animation. And I was looking through their repertoire, and I haven't seen any of their movies. I saw the first Ice Age, and after that, I have not seen any of their movies. I was told that Epic is really good. I'll have to watch that and get back to you. But, it's not like DreamWorks where there's a track record of, but then they got better, which is cool. It's always great when they get better. And it's not like Disney or Pixar, but I think they're really gunning for that old school Disney grandeur. Like, it really did remind me of Bambi at times. And there's so much really good-looking, striking imagery, both in terms of the technology and just in just beautiful shots. Like, anytime Ferdinand looks at flowers, and there's always like this, not soft focus, but really detailed close-up of him just admiring the beauty in a flower that, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I might just be an emotional wretch. I'm not sure, but also in terms of just huge, trailer shots. I haven't even seen a trailer for this movie, but I can't imagine that the trailer does not involve him in the China shop, which was a great image because it's a bull in a China shop. You don't need me to explain that to you. And he's balancing everything, trying so hard not to make anything break. And everything it's like a physics. They must have taken forever to animate, so much going on in shots like that. And there's a car chase later on that's really, really inventive, and it has a lot of big moments. It looks gorgeous. But there are a few moments that are a bit cheap, that look literally cheap. Despite the whole bit in the the China shop, there are a few bits where stuff falls over, gets knocked over, or the physics don't look right. Like there's one bit in particular, I think it's cups. A bunch of cups fall over, and the way they fall over looked like the uncanny valley of physics. I was kind of, maybe they should have given that another pass. Or if they hand animated it, or if it was like procedural physics that they put in there Maybe they should have run the simulation again. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how any of that stuff works. I'm not saying that I could do a better job, but then that could have been touched up a little bit. There were also a couple of shots not distracting enough to be like, this is a mark against the movie, but I do feel like mentioning it. There were a couple of shots where it looked like there were not as many frames of animation as there are supposed to be. Um, there you see it in some movies. Like I remember seeing it in a Transformers movie. I think it was the third one. There are a couple of shots where Optimus Prime suddenly looks like he's like being rendered at half the frame rate, and he looks really choppy. And it's usually only like for a shot or two, but it's like, oh, why didn't they give that shot the extra attention that it clearly needed? And there were a couple of shots like that in Ferdinand, but really they were short and they weren't like important action beats. Um, and ultimately they're not a huge deal, but I think they're worth mentioning. Um, so yeah, I love this movie, but there's a couple of things that piss me off. Um, one is that a few jokes skew a little juvenile. They're a little dumb. It's not terribly crass, but it's also not in step with the rest of the movie, which is so gorgeous and so relevant and so smart. Like it's just a really smart movie that doesn't talk down to the kids and thus can be enjoyed by people who aren't kids. Um, but then there's like this 5-minute dance contest scene. It's like a massive dance off with these German horses. That I mean, the horses themselves don't add anything to the movie, but you know, Germans sound funny, which is true. They do sound really funny, but like it's kind of a waste of time. Like it's just like you can see the studio executive being like, "You got to put in something dumb. Put in something dumb. Put something dumb in there." So I had a couple of mild quibbles, but ultimately they did not detract from how much fun I had at this movie and how strongly the message resonated with me. Uh, I hope that it has that effect on everyone who watches it. I mean, the movie's probably not going to get that much attention this week or next week, or probably until it comes out on DVD, because it's kind of Star Wars is definitely sucking out all the oxygen from the room, which it should be, because I mean that movie is huge beyond all comparison. But I hope that at some point, maybe after seeing Star Wars 3 or 4 or 5 times, they'll give Ferdinand a shot. So that's my take on Ferdinand. Let me know if you've watched it. Give me your take. Follow me at on Twitter, and I'll be back soon with another video.